Good morning, everyone. My name is Ghodke, and I'm a power market analyst at ICF. And we've been listening to a lot of great talks since last 2 days on EV integration and their implications on power sector. So, as you all know, that electric vehicles are they combine both transport sector and plus the power sector as well. So our study was mostly based on transport sector side of things. uh, so just to give you a background that the trends for EV adoption in across the globe, they start usually from government fleets like electric buses, government fleets for cars, and then it goes to commercial vehicles, commercial fleets, and then it gradually shifts to private consumers. So that's what's been happening in India also. A lot of pilots have been conducted. So to give you a real world example, that Ola had conducted a pilot in Nagpur in 2017, and they had around 30 to 50 electric vehicles running around and around 5 to 10 charging stations. So the major takeaway from that study was that the EV drivers were getting discouraged because of long waiting queues at the charging stations, and that's why they were losing on the opportunity to get the next trips. So even though the cost of operation for electric vehicles is pretty low, it's around 1 rupee per kilometer as compared to 3 to 4 rupee for gasoline vehicles. So that's still not enough for these drivers to go for electric vehicles, and it's not good. And so that the we need to have better fleet management solutions in order to have a smooth transition towards electric mobility, and that's what we try to do in our analysis. So to begin with, what were the major drivers for electric mobility? So India has, 15 of world's top 20 polluted cities. Plus, there is a high dependence on oil imports. So we need to have a diversified transportation mix. And lot of policies are coming around, and let's say for electric vehicles to go forward, we can also think of hydrogen fuel cells as an option for long range vehicles, in order to have a better range anxiety, or reduce the range anxiety problems. Uh, that's what about the fuel mix. And then India is again on track to meet its emission targets as according to the Paris Paris Accord that was signed in 2015. And still India is around makes up around 7% of global CO2 emissions, coming after US, China, and European Union. Uh, and our government is coming up with a lot of ambitious targets, and the Niti Aayog now has goals to go all electric by 2030 in different types of transport modes. And so, to coming back to our analysis, we have collected data from two Mahindra electric cars which are running around in Delhi, and the data was collected through a vehicle tracking system device. So it is a small device. It's a plug and play device that can easily can be installed in vehicle, and it collects the data from the battery management system of the vehicle for battery SOC, current voltage, and plus it has the GSM tracking, so we can track how much distance it has covered during what time. And the granularity of the data was 15 seconds. So we have collected the data for 2 months, and we have come up with the vehicle driving and energy consumption patterns. So as you see in the graph that it's an energy and driving consumption pattern for a typical day. So As you see, they start with 100% SOC level. It goes around 75-ish, and again they charge the vehicle. So it's in a way it's not good for a power system as well, because the battery is not totally depleting. So it gives need to set up a minimum SOC level. Beyond that, people should not charge. So that was the basic analysis from that. And again, the traffic congestion is very important, because there's energy consumption in the different traffic levels is very different. It varies drastically over the period, as you'll see in the next slides. So we have come up with the decision tree model, where any fleet manager or the driver can take a decision whether to go for a next trip or to go for the charging. Because if you analyze hourly basis, if you check the initial SOC level at each hour, if it's greater than minimum SOC, then it's good. Then you check for in the remaining battery how much distance it will cover in the next for the next hour or for the next trip. If it's not possible, then you look for the nearest charging station. And whenever you are looking for the nearest charging station, you need to have an idea of what's the tariff over there at the charging station, what's the queue. If you have that real-time information, it will help to get the driver to make a better decision. And so we have separated this study in two parts. So in the first part, we have considered fixed route fleets like buses, shuttles, and in the second part, we have flexible route fleets like Ola and Uber, where you don't know the distance for the next trip, right? For the fixed fleets, the things are pretty simple to assume or to go with. So there are the general assumptions you can see in the table, that we have set minimum SOC levels and maximum SOC levels as well. So to talk about maximum SOC level, 80%, the general battery charging rate from going from 0 to 80% is pretty faster as compared to 80 to 100. So the driver needs to make another decision whether he wants to top up from 80 to 100 or go for the next trip, depending on the demand at that period. So for the fixed route, we have come up with some solutions. So excuse me. To talk about this, usually the trend is like in a fleet, if you have around 20 to 25 vehicles, and if there are like 5 to 10 number of charging stations available, which is usually not the case, because if you see the ratio of number of EVs to number of charging points available, it's around 15 to 20, and that's talking about US and Europe. And if you come to India, that shoots up around 30. So that's very large number, and there's high probability there will be a huge waiting queue at the charging stations whenever the driver goes for the charging. So this is likely to discourage the driver to go for electric vehicles. So what's the better solution for the fleet manager? So if you start with, the general trend is like you start with 100% SOC whenever you start your day of operation. But if it's a fixed route vehicle, then all the vehicles are most likely to deplete their batteries around the same time. So all the vehicles will come for the charging, and that will congest the area, or that will lead to more waiting periods for these drivers. So to avoid that, you can have partial number of vehicles in your fleet charging, starting your day of operation with lower amount of SOC, which you can see in another graph, that will lead to non-coincidental charging patterns that will help to reduce the waiting times at the charging stations. And also, if you plan to go for another mode of charging, so there are two modes of charging. One is plug-in charging, and another is battery swapping. If you do the battery swapping for commercial vehicles, it's very likely to reduce the waiting periods at the charging stations. But I'm not saying that only battery swapping is a way to go. We can mix and match or combine both of them for commercial applications. And then coming back to flexible routes, flexible fleet solution, you don't know what will be the distance for the next trip. So you need to have real-time data on all the parameters. You need to have a connectivity issue or a platform or IoT software platform that will give you real-time data or that will connect all the mobility stakeholders like EV drivers, charging point operators, the utilities. If everyone is connected, think of like having a Google map. So on Google map, everyone can see real-time data, what's going on, what's happening. That will help make you a better decision going forward. So I think for in the future, we need to have this kind of software platform or an open platforms where people can go and check was the charging rate, was the traffic congestion, how much distance will I go in order to plan the trips in the future. So that will help to transition from gasoline fuels to the electric mobility. And here are my some of the conclusions from this analysis. That the major conclusion I came up with, that the fixed route EV vehicles need not start their day of operation with the 100% SOC levels. They can have lower SOC and have non-coincidental charging patterns, and that will help to reduce the waiting time, as well as they'll have a better opportunity to get the next trips in order to gain better revenue. And yeah, so that was my take on this. And if you want to reach out to us, these are my contact details.
Thank you, Amir.